A trip to the Arctic will never end well when there's terror involved. I could list movie after scary movie to outline all the reasons you would want to avoid being somewhere cold and desolate with no chance of rescue. The Thing, The Shining, Frozen, no, not the one with Elsa and Anna, Dead Snow, Hold the Dark, I could go on until the ice melts. Unfortunately, none of these tales existed prior to Captain Sir John Franklin's ill-fated expedition to the frigid waters. And for some reason, the council behind the journey decided it would be a good idea to send a ship named Terror. If you name a ship HMS Terror, you are going to experience some terror. Coincidentally, that's the title of the show that our monster comes from. Hello fellow friends and philosophers, and welcome back to the most mind-bending channel on YouTube, Life's Biggest Questions. I am your voice in the void, Keegan Hughes, and today we're taking a stab at a chilling question. What if the Tuunbaq was real? Before we dive in, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more cold content. Let's get started. The Tuunbaq is a mythical spirit bear that originated in Dan Simmons' 2007 novel The Terror, which was subsequently adapted into an AMC show. Imagine a gigantic polar bear with a human face. Also imagine that four-legged monstrosity tearing people in two like wet pieces of paper towel. Yeah, that's the stuff. Before we are really able to understand what would happen if the Tuunbaq was real, we have to take a look at the story for context. The Terror was based on real-life events, so it shouldn't be too hard to place this bear in among historical happenings. It follows Captain Sir John Franklin's famous lost Arctic expedition while adding fictional elements for a little extra flavor. Piecing together information collected over the years following the wreck, Simmons' retelling fills in the blanks with a variety of particularly disturbing details. As the crew deals with the everyday horrors involved with being stuck in the middle of a frozen wasteland, the Tuunbaq often shows up to cause even more mayhem. As more crew members are lost to the beast, the more determined they become to take it down. You know, as people tend to do. If you haven't already watched the first season of The Terror, you might want to cover your ears for this next bit. Spoilers incoming, so consider yourself warned. So in the end, the crew manages to take down the Tuunbaq in a desperate final act of mutually assured destruction. The crew's poisoned, some are chained together, and there's one man with a gangrenous leg wearing a coat covered in cutlery. This seems like a force that might not be too effective in a fight. However, they are basically sacrificing themselves to kill the beast at this point. The Tuunbaq, already weakened from previous encounters with cannons and other weapons, devours a fair deal of tainted meat via the sailors, and also consumes the fork-coated fellow. All these ingredients begin to tear up the Tuunbaq's insides, and the chain that it swallowed isn't helping either. Eventually, everyone involved in the fight dies. Well, almost everyone, but you know, watch the show to figure that one out. So why am I telling you all this stuff that happens in the show? I'm supposed to be telling you what would happen in real life. Well, these two scenarios probably aren't that different. If a giant human-faced polar bear showed up in our world and started attacking sailors and explorers, we probably would just kill it. And considering that the events of the Terror are based on historical happenings, it's a safe bet to say that they would probably play out pretty similarly. Beyond the mystical bear and its psychic connection to shamans, the Terror is rooted in realism. A lot of the horror that happens is based on the terrible conditions and uncertainty that comes along seafaring explorations. So in the end, the Tuunbaq is a visceral representation of the damage British colonizers inflicted upon the lands they invaded. Think about it this way: if the Franklin expedition never floated its way into the Inuit community, none of the horrible events would have taken place. The Tuunbaq's original shaman would not have been killed in error, and the beast would not have run free and taken more lives. There are parts of the book and show that detail the process of raising and training a shaman, and it seems like the community actually had a pretty good handle on the beast before the explorers showed up. The Tuunbaq used to take the souls of people at will, and the people had no way to defend themselves. But over years and years, they figured out how to feed it, communicate with it, and live in harmony with it. Neither giving or taking too much, a delicate balance was struck between the people and this divine creature. And then all of a sudden, these dudes show up, kill the shaman, and doom everyone. Great. Good work, folks, ruining everything for no reason. So yeah, if the Tuunbaq was real, I can see it playing out pretty much exactly the same as it does in The Terror. But that's not very creative, is it? So what we'll do now is transplant this terror into our modern times. We'll assume that the expedition didn't come across the Tuunbaq and that they just discovered the Northwest Passage like they set out to do. So in this scenario, the Tuunbaq gets to live out its life in the Arctic, finding harmony between it and the Inuit people. Fantastic. It survives for hundreds of years and sees the procession of many shamans, but now what? It's 2019. The Arctic does not look the same as it used to. Nope, the ice is much thinner and the wildlife less diverse. It's harder than ever to survive out there. Sure, it's good news for shipping routes, but not for animals and people who have relied on it for their way of life for countless generations. Over time, the giant polar bear become weaker and smaller and hungrier. Kind of like the polar bears we see roaming the melted ice caps. The people that used to feed it have moved to more solid ground, and the animals it used to feed on have died or disappeared. Tough living for this terror. With modern technology though, I'm sure somebody could find the Tuunbaq and not be immediately eviscerated. A drone or some other aircraft would be able to come across it and people would get curious. Eventually, a team of researchers would go out and see what information they could gather on the beast. They probably wouldn't consult anyone either. Classic hubris. We found a new beast, let's get it! So whoever gets there first is toast. Even if they came well equipped, I doubt they'd be ready for the killer instinct and power inherent in the Tuunbaq. Even in its weakened state, it would make a quick meal out of anyone who came close. This would probably be the last time though. After fatalities, people would understand the level of hostility within the beast and send some bigger guns for sure. Tranquilizers, restraints, you name it. Anything's acceptable as long as you don't kill it, because there's no way people are gonna give up on an opportunity to research a new creature. So soon enough, the Tuunbaq would be in captivity, monitored 24/7 by what should be its food. How the tides have turned. Over time, it would begin to gain back its strength. It would bide its time, waiting for the perfect opportunity. The researchers so carefully watching its every move would be delighted that they were able to nurse it back to health. But of course, small oversights can lead to big problems. The only safe Tuunbaq is a dead Tuunbaq, and in a flash the creature would break out and consume anyone within range. The first soul-filled meal in ages. The Tuunbaq would rampage through the research facility, plowing through any and all scientists, guards, and administration. It's not likely that there would be too many resources expended on watching this emaciated bear. People have prisons to run, you know. So the Tuunbaq would successfully break free of the enclosure, leaving a whole bunch of death in its wake. It could only roam free for so long though, because somebody definitely put a tracker somewhere in its flesh. And once the imminent danger is discovered, higher firepower would be mobilized. It would put up a good fight, but sadly, ancient spirit bears are no match for explosive weapons and armor-piercing rounds. Taking down a few rifle-wielding soldiers in the process, the Tuunbaq would go down for a final rest. And when it breathes its last breath, the descendants of the shamans will feel it. They might not know what they're feeling, but they'll know that something of great magnitude has happened. So to summarize, if the Tuunbaq was real, it would do pretty much exactly what it did in the Terror. If it survived past that point, it would eventually feel the degenerative effects of melting polar ice and roam the wilds. It would be captured, researched upon, and strengthened, which means it's time for some Tuunbaq terror. In the end, it would fall to the advanced weapons mankind is so adept at creating. Sorry Tuunbaq, maybe in another life. What do you think? Would it go down differently? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more daring comments from last time. Potato Mato P says, what if you just name things simple like pizza or hamburger instead of a Visa number? I mean, pizza and hamburger are already taken. Plus, we don't want people thinking dangerous things are delicious. That is a recipe for disaster. Lucas Hill asks, alright, so what's the meaning of life? 42. George Noel asks, what if Monster Girls from the Monster Girl Encyclopedia series made by Kenku Cross was real? Well, you'd probably be quite the happy camper if that happened, hey George? That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.